Mr. Niranjan Hiranandani, MD of the Hiranandani Group, joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Hiranandani, thank you so much, sir, for taking our time to speak to NewsX. I want to begin, of course, by asking you, what are your first thoughts on the budget?
I think wonderful budget, very positive. It's taken off from where we've left off, which is the fastest growing nation in the world. The economic survey gives indications of all the positives that have happened in the last recent past. And the way forward has also been very clear that it's going to be investment focused. It's going to be an employment direction focus. It's going to be a skilling focus, and all the sectors of the economy which need to be supported are going to be done. Speaking specifically in terms of the real estate sector, we do see that the issue is 11 lakh crores for the affordable housing segment, which talks about 1 crore houses in the urban areas and 2 crores houses in the rural areas. I think that interest subvention is a big thing because affordable housing had taken a setback in the last 12 months. And I think this push was needed. The higher interest rates from 6.5% to 2.5 years ago to 8.5, 8.7% for the affordable segment is not affordable. And hence, I think this bringing about the interest subvention in the scheme is going to be a booster for the affordable housing segment, which is going to be extremely important. The second very important factor is the skilling part of it. Very much to see that I couldn't get skilled workers for my sites. Earlier, maybe 10 years, 15 years ago, if I wanted 100 skilled workers, I'd get 500. Today, when I want 100 carpenters, painters, fitters, and so on, barbenders, I don't get 20. And with the further growth in infrastructure and housing, it's going to be even further. So on one side, we have unemployment. And on the other side, I don't get workers at all. And this is something not only in the housing and infrastructure, but also in many of the MSMEs and manufacturing and other sectors also. So I think a lot of emphasis on the skilling sector is going to be extremely important, which has been indicated in the budget. And I hope we are able to walk the talk in terms of it. Two other factors in the real estate sector which are important. First, the rental housing scheme. We've been asking for this better because in India, we only talked about ownership housing. While in the richest country in the world, America, 50% of the people live from birth to death in rental housing. So I think a focus on rental housing was needed. A beginning has been made by the finance minister in bringing about industrial workers in dormitories to be given a subsidy and benefit under a PPP scheme. Now, that is a good beginning, but not enough. Why not hostels, student accommodation, co-living, other people who are coming in different cities? What about people in the services sector to have rental housing, and so on and so forth? But good beginning at least has been made finally after many years of requesting the government that we needed to do. The other aspect of it, which I consider extremely important, is digitizing and land records and GIS mapping of the entire country.
Yes.
A beginning has been made wherein revenue records as well as GIS mapping is going to take place in the entire country. And I think that's fantastic because title documents were terrible, to say the least. And one couldn't rely on it. One could invest in it. And after 5 years, find that your title is not clear. I think a direction has been made wherein person can be confident that by looking at the revenue records, that the titles would be absolutely clear, I think is there. One more thing, if I may add, direction has been given by the finance minister to the states to reduce stamp duty and other costs. Today, in many of the projects, including mine, 50% of the cost of the house that I'm selling is actually stamp duty, additional charges, GST, and all the things put together. So I think that is too much of a cost, and I think it needs rationalization, and a direction has been requested by the finance minister to the states and to the local authorities in order to rationalize these things. I think these are important aspects in the budget which I am able to visualize, and I think it will take the country forward. If you can push all this and more in terms of execution, you'll have a double-digit GDP growth by the end of 25.
Okay.
If you actually execute everything that we are talking about, I think we'll be able to achieve that. We will create a wonder in the world which hasn't happened anywhere else.
Mr. Hiranandani, you raised several pertinent points, and I'll just come to specifics of those. As far as skilled labor is concerned, sir, how do you feel that a vision of skilled labor can be achieved in reality and practicality? What sort of push is then required also from the private sector, as well as in terms of development of institutions where people can go to get certain skill sets, very specific skill sets to enter the job market, which we don't see happening today?
I think every contractor, every builder, every construction, every infrastructure company should become a skill training center on the sites and all that. And now we have enough possibilities of using AI, using VCs, using other media technology by which we can do training on the sites itself. So every contractor, every construction company, every infrastructure company could become a training center, and only examinations to be done by any authority which actually certifies these skills. And every site could become a training center. Today, what is visualized is to start creating trainers which will be certified, and then you employ these trainers. That's not going to work fast enough because we need millions of people to be trained and done. It can only be done by industry on the sites itself. Similar to what we do in terms of internships and employment in the companies, we need to do the same in the case of construction workers, other areas in which we can do training and skilling. I think that will happen. Of course, ITIs and others have their own role to play, but I think that's not fast enough for people to do. We have to be technology driven in order to see that millions of people are trained simultaneously across all sites in the country.
Absolutely. Ms. Hiranandani, one more question from you. So I just want to understand, there is some chatter about certain announcements that have been made on long-term capital gains as well. What are your thoughts on what has been announced in terms of rationalization across assets, instead of what the finance minister and everyone's trying to explain, that earlier there was, of course, a tax slab, but then there was differentiation as far as indexation benefits were concerned across different sets of long-term assets. What are your thoughts on the same as well? Because there seems to be certain panic, and a lot of panic, especially in the real estate sector as well, on what's happened.
No panic at all. First, you must understand that those who wanted to invest into the markets of real estate or capital markets used to look at 10% in the case of capital markets for long-term capital gains and 20% in the case of real estate. Now that differential is gone. So now we are putting pari passu to people who want to invest in real estate and capital markets on one foot. So they will, after 2 years, be on the same platform of 12.5% tax. What is, of course, important is the fact that those who are holding properties for a long period of time, heritage property, they will definitely be at a disadvantage, because for them the cost was almost zero. Inherited properties or properties which were held 20 years ago. So I think those are the challenges where they will be paying higher rates of tax. But from an investment portfolio today, we would now be equal to capital markets and real estate. So I think there's going to be a long-term benefit in the line, but some negative in terms of those who hold heritage properties or properties which are held for a long period of time. But we've been asking that we should be put pari passu to what is there in the capital markets, and that is exactly what the government has done. So I really can't complain about it, but maybe we could again talk to the government in order to bring about some rationality to heritage properties which would come in for development in the real estate sector, especially for the housing sector, so that there would be more incentives to really get into the whole thing.
All right.